As we start to get into the instruction area of this program, I want you to think about how you've learnt to play golf. Most amateurs have learned either from the very best players of the day, starting with Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, now Tiger Woods, and their swing thoughts and ideas are now in vogue and everybody copies them. The only thing that those 5 guys had in common is that they were genius golf players. They didn't think the same thoughts, they didn't even try to swing in the same way. You only need to focus on one golf swing, and that's your golf swing. Don't fall into the trap of becoming an instruction junkie. Another area of learning to play golf, you're hitting a shot, it goes to the right, you figure, okay, well maybe I could strengthen my grip, and you have found the solution for the game. 2 weeks later though, that strong grip could be hooking for you and you're back to where you started. Don't just react to the last shot that you hit. If you're going to bother practicing, practice something that's permanent. Get an idea that you know is what you should be thinking on and repeat it 1,000 times. It's so much more productive to repeat the same thought 1,000 times as opposed to repeat 1,000 different thoughts once. If you're going to practice, let's make some permanent improvement. We all have different levels of strength, of flexibility, of coordination, and most importantly, we all have limitations on time. A tour professional can make a far more complex practice system for himself because he has all day to work on it. If you only have a few hours a week, don't make a complicated practice session for yourself because you won't ever have time to achieve those complicated goals. Time is a huge issue on what you can and cannot achieve in your golf swing. So what is a good golf swing? The golf swing is made up of many moving parts, which we will discuss in the following issues. It's vital that you understand that you're not looking for a set of positions, you are looking for a motion. A golf swing is a moving thing. A good golf swing is when all of those motions work together as a unit. There are 2 engines that you need to combine in order to achieve your maximum power potential. The first one is the mass of your body. The shifting of the weight and the momentum of the weight shift definitely add power to your shots. The other is the swinging of the club head. Your goal is at impact to get the weight of your body and the weight of the club head to hit the ball at the same time. Before we get started in talking about the technique, we need to be able to understand what influences affect the ball flight. We're going to talk about a straight shot, a shot that curves in the air from right to left, which is a hook, and a slice, which is a ball that curves in the air from left to right. Now, the straight shot is caused when the swinging path of the club is going exactly down the target line at impact with a perfectly square face. This imparts no side spin on the ball, so the ball is going in the direction that it was hit. A hook is caused when the club face is shutting down at impact or is shut at impact. And also, generally, you will find that the path is coming from inside the target line to outside the target line. A slice is the opposite of a hook, so that the club face is open or opening through impact, and the path of the club is coming from outside the target line to inside the target line. It's very important that you can understand these ball flight laws so that you can identify some feelings that can help you get around the golf course. If you're out in a tournament and you've got a huge slice going, you need to be able to correct that, stop the bleeding out on the golf course, go to the driving range, and then really get yourself sorted out for the next time. The fundamentals of golf are so boring to work on. Ball position, body positions, the grip, the alignment. If you want to have fun at impact, you have to make sure that your fundamentals are correct. Many players only feel the mistake at impact because that's where you get your feedback. Make sure that you're not making simple mistakes that you could easily fix at address, which are going to punish you later on at impact. Now, the point of contact with the club is the grip, and you never ever see a tour player with a bad grip, and you never see a beginning golfer with a good grip. So there are two important influences that grip has on your golf game. The first one is the speed. If you hold the club too much in the palm of your hand, if I was to throw a ball and I held it in my fist, I wouldn't be able to use the fastest joint in my body, which is my wrists. This is a huge power source, and if you've only got a little time to work on something, you must get a good grip if you are to maximize your power and your accuracy. You should hold the club out in your fingers so that you can get the maximum amount of leverage, which will give you the greatest amount of pleasure from the game. The other influence that the grip has is to control the club face. If your hands are too twisted, shut or open, then what you will find is that the club face will be affected, which will send your golf balls all over the golf course. There are 3 different ways that you can put your hands together, and they're all perfectly fine, but it does make a difference that you find the grip that matches your own particular physique and especially the size and strength of your hands. If you've got small fingers, then it's useful to think about this grip, which is called the interlocking grip. Jack Nicklaus used this grip and it seemed to work okay for him. Give it a try if your hands are smaller, your fingers perhaps are shorter, and this I think is a very good way to put your hands together. Another way is where there is no interlock at all. This is the 10-finger grip or baseball grip, and it's very useful for players with weaker hands or stiffer wrists. You can get a lot of leverage out of this. The last way, and the most common, is where you can see my little finger laps over my forefinger of my left hand, the overlapping grip. This is the most common. Once you've picked a grip that is suitable for you, stick with it. Many people think of the grip as only the position of your hands on the club. It's also vitally important that you understand the second and most important fundamental, which is where you hold the club in your fingers. Let me show you a few different things here so that you can understand how both of these 2 fundamentals must work together if you're going to have a good golf grip. Many people look at their hand position on the club, and if it looks pretty good, they're satisfied. However, for me, this is still a poor grip. You can't see if the grip is good until you actually open up your hands, and you can see on the left hand that it was held very much into the fist of my hand, which is going to give me no wrist action at all. The grip must make contact with the trigger finger of your left hand and then sit into this little pocket at the top of your little finger. When I put the club back down, my left hand position hasn't changed. as far as being strong or being weak, but where I hold the club in my hand has changed significantly. You also want to make sure that you match your hands up. Don't have a particularly strong left one and a weak right one, or vice versa. Make sure that your hands are in balance. You need to achieve two goals. One, to hold it in your fingers of both hands, and two, to make sure that you have a neutral grip. That means that your left hand and your right hand balance each other. Now, in finding your neutral grip, which is the position that both of your hands should be on the club for you to keep the club face square, you need to understand that it's sometimes dangerous to copy other players, because what is neutral for one player is not neutral for another. If I take just my normal address and let my arms hang, you can see how my fingers tend to come in towards my body a little bit, so that my hands and arms are at 45 degrees across my body. Now, some people's arms hang naturally like this, and some people's arms hang naturally like this. The way to find your neutral grip is through experimentation. Watch me as I do this exercise. You can see that, let's say I exaggerate and I give myself a particularly strong grip, which means my left hand is turned around to the right side of the club. If I put my right hand on, equally strong, and I just relax and let the club fall out in front of me, you can see, for me, this is not neutral. Let's have another go. Weaken my left hand a little bit, but not too much. Put my right hand on so that it matches up. Close my eyes. Just relax my arms. And you can see that that's my neutral grip. So don't get fooled by thinking that you've got to copy some of the tour players perhaps that you see in the magazines. What you need to do is to find your neutral grip. Once you've found it, remember it, because that's what you need to practice with for every single shot you hit. Now, in taking your address position, you need to be aware of the following basic ideas. The address position is slightly variable. You can make some adaptations to suit your own physique. If I take my address position, what I'm looking for, first of all, point of contact with the ground. Obviously, that's going to be my feet. So my balance works from the ground up my body. If I'm weak in my legs or my feet, how can I expect to have a good stable motion in my upper body? Width of stance. It should probably be around shoulder width for a 5-iron. A little narrower for a wedge, a little wider for a driver. If you're too narrow, it's very easy to lose the balance in your legs because your base isn't big enough. If you're too wide, your base is too strong and you won't be able to get enough motion in your upper body. Do a little experimenting. Find the address position with the feet that is most comfortable and most effective for your own personal physique. Also, your lower body is going to be your anchor. Make sure you've got a nice knee flex and really sit down in your hips. This gives you a very solid base so that when you go to coil to create speed, you can really build up a lot of coil and really send it. With my upper body, you want to try to keep your shoulders back, your chest up, and your spine very straight. The reason for this is that the engine comes from the upper body, and you want to have plenty of width and room so that you can move aggressively. If you can follow these basic address keys, down in the lower body, tall in the upper body, then you'll find a very effective base which will give you a very dynamic motion. You have to remember, golf is unique. There's no moving at the beginning. The ball doesn't move and I'm standing still. So how I set myself up for motion is going to determine how good my shots are. there are several things that you can change and manipulate to help suit your body type. If you're not particularly flexible, then you might want to try a few of these ideas. By flaring out your right foot, which means pointing it this way, it allows you to open up this right hip joint a little more, and it may make it a lot easier for you to turn behind the ball. If you're very, very flexible, then that's the last thing you want to do, and you would do, as I do, almost to point the foot in so that I can build resistance against this right hip. If I was to make my swing and flare out my right foot, I think my hips would never stop turning. The other area, if you have a hard time to get through the ball, don't toe in this foot, but flare it out again to help you clear out of the way. So go to the driving range and experiment with some of these different foot positions. Find the one that best suits your motion and your flexibility. Don't get fooled into copying someone who perhaps has a different body composition than you. There's no point in you trying to be someone that you're not. Good luck with this, and if you can work with this, it'll definitely get you more efficient at impact. Balance at address is another vital element of giving yourself the biggest chance of success at impact. I see many players make a deathly fault, setting up with too much weight on the left side at address. If I'm going to turn behind the ball, and this is my starting point, I'm going to have to make such a massive motion to get behind the ball, and I'm never going to feel comfortable having that many moving parts. It's my recommendation, set yourself up so that you can feel where your weight is, and make sure that you can feel the pressure on this right quad muscle at address. If it's supported already, you'll have a much easier time to turn onto it, and that will really get your weight shift moving in the right direction. Experiment, find the perfect balance point for you, remember it, write it down, and that's what you should remind yourself of whenever you're thinking about your address position. I want you to think about these elements from the down the line view. It's vital that my feet, my hips, and my shoulders match up. You don't want to get into a situation where your feet are shut, your hips are square, and your shoulders are open, because you'll never be able to get any kind of consistency from that. You can stand a little shut, but make sure everything is shut. You can stand a little open, make sure everything is open. Don't get twisted. If you're twisted, your body will not move correctly. Now, when I take my address position, and I'm just going to go for a neutral setup, I make sure my feet are square, and now in my lower body, I'm going to flex my knees and sit down in my hips so that I've got a real stable base. With my upper body, you can see I let my arms hang in, and you can feel that your arms hang into your sides. You can see now my spine is straight. If your spine is curved, you'll never be able to get any rotation. Get down to the ball in your lower body and stay tall in your upper body with your arms hanging against your sides. In this way, you'll be able to get much better motion and much more coordination between your lower body and your upper body. If you need to check your address position, either go to your pro and ask him to take a video, or check it out in the mirror yourself. If you fall into habits at address, how can you expect impact to give you any kind of pleasure at all? Now, ball position, I think, is one of the most difficult things to get correct every time. When I'm working with the tour players, we are always fighting alignment and ball position. And I want to explain to you a simple exercise so that when you're practicing, you know you're practicing from the correct ball position. Now, watch me go through this exercise. First of all, the thing that you must understand is that ball position is a variable. There isn't one perfect ball position for everybody. If you tend to fade the ball, which is fine as long as you do it every time, then you will always want to have the ball a little bit further forward in your stance. If you tend to draw the ball, then you will want to have the ball a little bit further back in your stance. Let's go through a neutral ball position so that I can explain to you the benefits of having the ball in the same place for every shot. When I take my address position, what I'm looking to do in my swing is to have the ball level to my left ear. This gives me the perfect bottom of my swing every time. If the ball is too far forwards or the ball is too far back, then I will always be manipulating to try to find the perfect point. The other thing to remember, if I've got a wedge and my stance is narrower, you can see that the difference is only that my right foot has come further in. Don't move your ball position around for different clubs. It's very, very difficult to find the same ball position, and if you've got a different ball position for every club, by the time you've got to the third or fourth hole, you'll have no idea where you're going. If I'm taking a wedge, all I do is manipulate my right foot to find a comfortable base. If I have a 5-iron, I'm going to be a little wider, but you can see how the ball has not changed. With a driver, the ball looks more forwards, but only because my stance width has increased. The critical element here is for you to find the same ball position every time. Do a little experimenting. Once you've found the place that you think the most comfortable, use that for every shot. In this way, you'll add a huge amount of consistency to your golf game. We're going to begin your golf swing so that we can build a chain reaction. If we're going to build a chain reaction, we have to get the beginning correct. And I want you to understand how to do this little quarter swing exercise. Many amateurs need to develop a skill which I call educating your hands. What I mean by that is being able to get the feeling of the timing and being able to control and manipulate the club face. Many times on television you'll see a tour player and it doesn't look like he's happy with his shot. Boom, the ball comes down right next to the flag. He was able to save it and adjust it. Watch me set this up and follow as I go through my thoughts. What we're going to begin with is really the quarter swing. The quarter swing will help you to feel the club at impact so that you can erase any bad habits that you have and also reinforce those with some positive ones. Now for me, the quarter swing is just from the shaft parallel to the ground through to impact and through to this shaft parallel position here. The goal of this exercise is for you to learn how to square up the club face and also how to correct your path. Let me show you. I'm always going to take my good grip every time. And what I'm trying to do, just a narrow stance, because all I'm working on is just this arms motion. If you watch, what I am trying to do is to let my left arm roll over my right, then my right arm roll back up on top of my left, and then overtake it through impact. If you can practice this exercise and get the timing for this, it will give you some serious benefits at impact. Watch me do one. Just to here, back down to impact, and notice at impact that my shaft and the shaft that I've put on the ground here exactly match up. Don't have your hands behind the ball at impact and don't have them too far ahead either. It makes it very difficult to control the loft. I'm not looking to hit the ball far and I'm not looking for great shots. What I want you to do is to learn some of these feelings. Just to here, back down to impact, and then through. So this little hand action and arm action is the way that you can educate your hands to become a better ball striker and to have far more control when you're out on the golf course. When you're doing this quarter swing, one of the aspects that's very important for you to understand is that this is an arms and hands and slightly a wrist action only. There is no body motion, and the reason I want there to be no body motion is, as you will see now, when I'm making my full swing, the club clearly has the biggest distance to travel, and at address, as you start the club away, I see many players get into trouble by trying to keep the club too much in front of them. I've rotated my hips almost to a full degree and my club head's only traveled 3 feet. Make sure that your body resists the movement of the club as it starts away from the ball. You should feel perhaps that the club has a 4-foot head start and that your body moves as a result of that momentum. My takeaway, you can see my belt buckle still completely faces the ball. My legs are resisting and I might have a slight bit of shoulder motion as a result of my arms and the club moving away. Do not get into the trap of getting too much motion at the beginning. Too much motion at the beginning, you'll completely lose the coordination between your arm swing and your body turn, and you can get yourself into a serious mess at impact. This is the down the line view. The first thing I want you to notice is how, as I take the club away, you can really see how my body resists. I am trying always to keep my knees and hips as still and as solid as I can. They're only going to move if my upper body or my arm swing makes them move. The other aspect that's interesting to discuss is club face. And club face, first of all, is not as simple as it sounds. Now, generally, golfers talk about a shut club face where you can see that the face is still pointing very much down to the ground. A square club face, which is probably in between matching up with my spine angle and pointing to the sky, and an open club face where the face is pointing straight up to the sky, and you can see how the toe is definitely pointing very much behind me. Now, you need to find the position and the club face that matches up with your swing. Experiment with some different feelings to see which is the most comfortable for you. You generally find there are two types of golfers. A guy who releases it very strongly like Ian Woosnam, a guy who holds the face a little bit more square through the ball like Tiger Woods. Both are correct. The thing that is the key is for you to find the one which matches up with your skills and your comfort feelings. So, hit some from here and from here and from here so that you can feel the difference in the release. The key element is to find your square position. Once you've found that, that's what you need to practice. So remember, in golf, there are no rigid rules. Everybody is not going to swing together in the same way. You need to find the key fundamental elements that make your swing as efficient as it possibly can be.